Hello and welcome to A Better Now. I'm Jason Mann with Jim Check, streaming from the podcast lounge at Kelowna Now, live on Twitter and, well, YouTube, or X and YouTube. In today's show, we're going to share how you can save money and eat healthier at the same time. We might have the answer, at least one of the answers. And in part two of our show, we'll welcome Dr. Melissa Lem, who is tonight's speaker at the UBCO Distinguished Speaker Series. She's a doctor that prescribes, get it, nature, time in nature. So we're going to learn all about that. And maybe go for a walk. Maybe you heard of Japanese forest bathing. It might be something like that. We're going to learn all about it, though.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And so she has joined us from Vancouver. She'll be in studio here with us in a few minutes. Also, we'll connect on some of the things happening this weekend. But maybe, where do you want to start? Do you want to talk about hydroponics first?
Sure, let's do the hydroponics because I'm interested in that as well.
Yeah. So you've been interested. You've asked me some questions. So I've agreed to share a little bit about my journey as a junior hydroponics practitioner.
Yeah, I think I showed you that TikTok that had this cool hydroponics. He was like, I do that. I was just like, you do?
Huh? So yeah. So it's I've actually bought a system. It's called iHarvest. It's an automated hydroponic growing system. It's a tower that holds about 30 plants. It takes about 2.5 square feet of space. And they say that you can grow about $1,000 worth of veggies in 1 year.
Can you make your own? Like when you look at that thing, could you make your own in a plastic tubing and stuff?
Totally. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get it. I wanted to see kind of like how one of the better designed ones was set up, how it was working, what the design was. And I thought if I really wanted to get serious and, build a garden in my basement, I would learn everything I would need to.
So it's a bigger, we put the picture up, I take it? Marcy, we got that. And so it's a bigger tube. Is it full of water and then the plants sit in kind of like a peat moss and in the water?
Yeah. So it's about 4 feet high and there's a water reservoir at the bottom, a tank. And
so it's not full of water?
No, it's just a tank. Probably, somewhere around 10 to 20 liters is what you want to have in there. And it mixes with the nutrients that you put in the different pHs to keep the pH balanced the way you need to. And then there's a pump at the bottom. It pumps the water to the top, and there's been engineered at the top a tray that then disperses the water along rows, basically, of like where
drips, kind of
drips. Yeah, it's a drip line that comes down, and the
not
drip,
like a mister, but like drip thing.
Yeah,
I wonder if you missed it, that would be better.
It might. The dripping is it's all contained, so there's no exterior water as a result. It probably keeps the algae down by doing it that as well. The cups that we have in the hydroponic unit are like a peat moss, basically, and you sort of put the seed in them. You can get the seedlings growing basically in your window, and then once they've sort of come out, sprouted a couple of leaves, just pop them into the system. And I'm at day 30 right now in terms of cucumbers, tomatoes, and basil, and I'm putting in some peppers here shortly as well. So we'll have some fruit on the trees, if you will, hopefully in like another 30 to 60 days. So
that'll be interesting. You bring someone in.
Yeah, I'll do that.
I want to try it outside. You're doing it inside.
Yeah, just keeps the bugs down. Although I was tempted this summer to maybe do it outside.
Because you're using grow lamps, I take it.
Grow lamps in basically the basement, right? So.
So what else are you growing in there?
No, that's it. No.
Basement, on the windows.
Yeah. But it's actually relatively energy efficient. It just uses like 2 72-watt bulbs and a 14-watt
so
pump.
150 watts, basically, that powers my whole house.
Yeah, it's enough light to power the whole house for sure. But I think it's like $75 to $100 a year in energy costs to do it.
But if you did it outside, obviously, then the energy's free.
Yeah. Except for the pump, because you need to keep that pump going.
Right.
And the way the pump works, it's about every 15 minutes, it pumps water and then takes a break for 45. So it's 6 hours of pump time every day.
What if you ran a rain barrel off the side of your house and then use that rain barrel for the water too?
And then you could put fish in the rain barrel, then have nutrients. I don't know. There's probably something there. I think that's a thing.
We're getting carried away.
Anyway, I
want to try it.
I'm going to bring in some cukes and some tomatoes for you.
I'd like to drop by and actually look at it.
Yeah.
I want to see if I can build something.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty handy.
Anytime. So that is iHarvest. They cost about $1,000 Canadian. And so I figured like in a year, I think you could build it your own for far less, probably $400, I would think.
I've seen like the ones I showed you on TikTok. The guy had like, I don't know, like in an image I could see like 30 towers, and they had like cabbages that were the size of like basketballs.
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy.
I know. You're kind of limited because you have to grow things that will coexist in the same pH. So you can't grow a wide variety in a tower like this or in the same system that's connected to water.
Or I have a tower for each.
Mm-hmm.
So in our yard right now, we have a lot of deer living in our yard, including 2 babies and a mama. So we definitely have to build a deer fence because they basically eaten everything in our yard.
Yeah, it's that time. Deer or bears.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll come back and bring some produce in when we have something to show you. We'll have a little farmers market day here at Kelowna now. Breakout West is underway. And so if you happen to be in Kelowna or staying here, you're going to be seeing a lot of activity down at the Grand and throughout the city. There's performances happening. If you are out on the town or want to be out on the town, you might want to check out things happening at the Curling Club, the Black Box Theater, Redbird, BNA, Kettle River Brewing Company, and Metro Hub are some of the locations where things are happening for Breakout West, in addition to the conference stuff that's happening at the Grand. Friday the 13th is tomorrow. It's kind of one of those spooky months. We have Halloween in a couple of weeks. We've got Friday the 13th tomorrow. Pluto has gone direct. If you're an astrologer, and lots of reasons to be afraid. But are you?
I used to think Friday the 13th was my lucky day, and I always thought the number 13 was lucky for me. But I have seen lots of people really superstitious, like black cats. I've actually seen people on the road try to swerve at a black cat to run it over. I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, so, I mean, the superstition is that bad. You want to run over a cat? But obviously we've had quite a few hockey people in our house. There's lots of superstitions in hockey for sure, and how you get ready for pregame and stuff like that. And I think maybe you could argue that superstitious or process driven, right? Do you know what I mean? Like you break your process, like, I golf now, so there's a process as you set up, right? And there's a process, like I know what the boys, they would do, like starting for a day before their pre-game meals and all that stuff, right? That they had a very regimented amount of time they slept and all that kind of stuff, and the way they put their gear on, the way the chair they sat in. I remember once one of the boys was sitting in the chair, and I guess the other guy had his girlfriend over, and that girl was sitting in his chair for his pregame meal, and he's like, "You got to get out of my chair, man! Like, that's my pregame routine."
Wow, that tight.
That tight. Yeah. So.
Yeah. That's interesting.
He's playing in the NHL right now, so.
Well, you hear that a lot of NHL players have this superstitious kind of connection.
I think it's like lots of times superstitious and process, maybe, because process definitely, when you're playing a sport or something, process driven stuff is I gotta figure out a way to silence my phone. Eh?
your arm phone.
Yeah, but I think maybe some people mistake superstitious for sometimes process, but there is a lot of people that are really superstitious, like broken mirrors, black cats, I don't know, stepping on sidewalk cracks, break your mother's back.
Either way, it's happening tomorrow. So whether you're superstitious or not, Friday the 13th is tomorrow. At least it's probably bound to be a good sale somewhere. All right. So we're going to talk about your interview with Pierre Poilievre, an exclusive Kelowna Now interview. Rick Madison and you met up with him. We'll talk about that in a second here. Is there anything else you want to connect on before we cut talking about that?
I think it'll be kind of short. We have a guest coming in today, so we'll try to keep this part short today.
Yeah. So maybe we'll get Marcy, in fact, to wrangle Melissa. We have a interesting guest lined up for today. Just happens to be in Kelowna today, speaking at UBCO's Distinguished Speaker Series, and topic that I think is so important for so many people these days, just with the heightened stress of cost of living, war, and various things going on, culture wars in our own country, and real war happening elsewhere. Well, that's
on the Poilievre interview. We'll have that interview tomorrow. We got an exclusive interview, so that's great. We'll have that for everybody tomorrow. We're just going to get set up here for the doctor.
That's great. Come on over. We're streaming live and wanted to not take a break, so we thought we would just have you come in live and join us live as we go.
Perfect. I'm ready.
All right. And maybe we want to just check her mic to make sure Melissa's mic is on. So in studio with us today, as I mentioned, speaking tonight at the Distinguished Speaker Series event is Dr. Melissa Lem, and you're a general practitioner?
I am.
Practicing in Vancouver?
That's right. And I also do rural medicine too sometimes.
We just want to pull the mic in a bit for her.
Yeah. And so you're a unique general practitioner in as much that you're involved with a few different programs and things happening on a national basis. The one that I'm interested in, I think the one that you're speaking about tonight, is your involvement with PARX.
You pronounced it right.
Okay.
Yeah, so PARX is Canada's National Nature Prescription Program, and it's powered by the BC Parks Foundation, which is the official charitable partner of BC Parks. And it's a program where doctors and nurses can literally prescribe nature to their patients to improve their health in an evidence-based way. And it's seen huge success across the country and gotten lots of international attention.
Can you give us an example of how that works? Like if I was to come in, and what would kind of my symptoms be for you to prescribe that for me?
Right. Well, it doesn't actually have to be a doctor or nurse. So it's any regulated health professional. So your physiotherapist or even RMT could do this for you. But essentially any medical condition can be made better by time in nature. It's not, a lot of people think of mental health, and that's certainly a big one for us, but high blood pressure, cholesterol issues, prenatal outcomes, ADHD in kids, the list goes on and on about the different positive health effects of spending time outside. And so essentially the healthcare practitioner would identify that the patient likely needs a nature prescription, more time outdoors, and would write down on a piece of paper, so a standardized nature prescription file. We have your prescription about how to incorporate nature time into your everyday life, working with you, of course, to figure out how you can best fit it in.
So would some people would be probably very accepting of that because maybe they're used to parks and stuff, but some people probably not used to walking and know where to go. Is there more resources for them, or?
Do you know what's interesting is that you don't necessarily need to move to benefit from a nature prescription. There's research showing that even if you just sit for 15 minutes on a park bench, that your cortisol or stress hormone levels drop, your blood pressure drops, your heart rate variability, which is a marker of stress, improves. So you don't actually have to move. So it's a very accessible prescription for essentially anyone. You don't have to go to a park either. You can be in your backyard garden if you're lucky enough to have one. Any place where you feel like you've connected to nature is where you'll notice those benefits.
And you say it's evidence-based, so you have obviously results of that. And what do you see for results?
Well, we have prescribed nature we did a recent survey, and I think the statistic is over 600,000 patients across Canada have been prescribed nature. And so our first step in this initiative was to try to register as many health professionals and start generating those prescriptions as quickly as possible. And now we're working on the data phase. So we are actually collaborating with a couple of major international research projects, one based in the EU that's 6.3 million euros, that's looking at randomized controlled trials and other experiments and other studies to see how nature benefits people, and then also to scale it up across the world. So I think we're going to get some of that data and that information from these initiatives or these projects that we're collaborating on soon. There's another one in Australia that's looking at prescribing nature for cardiometabolic disease like diabetes and obesity and pre-hypertension as well.
So if you're prescribing it, are you using it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, this morning I thought, I was feeling a little stressed about my talk tonight, so I thought I got to go out. So I took a run along the waterfront and stopped and looked at the trees, looked at the sparkling water and the sunshine.
I noticed you said that when we were saying we're getting ready for the show, you said, I'm just going to sit out here and take in the views.
That's right. You invited me to sit in here with the kids. I said, I'm going to zen out in your main area. Yeah.
The concept of Japanese forest bathing, is it similar, different? How do they compare? Because there's a lot of evidence and history around that practice, right?
Shinrin-yoku, it sounds like this ancient practice, but it was actually developed in the 1990s in Japan. And it was a response to the hyper-urbanization that they saw and all the mental health issues that workers were having because of these urban environments of high stress. So they kind of leaned on their traditions and then created this program where people could forest bathe. So they could take in the forest with all of their senses and connect to nature. And then they also measured their blood pressure and their cortisol and different factors and showed people that, in fact, these parameters were improving when they spent time outdoors in these national Shinrin-yoku nature bathing forests. So it's a way that you can connect to nature, but there are all kinds of different ways that we can spend time outside. It doesn't have to be forest bathing.
So tonight you'll be speaking about this, and what other kinds of information of value will you be sharing that people would take away from or get value from watching you?
I will be talking a lot about the health benefits of nature and the evidence base behind that, and then also how prescribing nature is both good for patient health and also planetary health, how it promotes a connection to nature that inspires people to want to protect nature and beyond, and then also just some of the successes that our program has had internationally and nationally, and next steps. My real goal is to inspire people to want to spend more time in nature themselves, because we know we're more resilient, we're healthier when we spend time.
And nature makes more sense for some stuff for sure, instead of chemicals, right? Like a pill.
Right. We view nature prescriptions as part of an overall treatment plan. So, if you walk into a doctor's office, they're not going to say, oh, you don't need a medication. If you want it, here's your nature prescription. If they need medication, that's totally fine. But we view nature time as one of the 4 pillars of health, just as important as healthy diet and exercise and sleep at maintaining a healthy lifestyle.
So nature prescription is kind of like making a plan or making an appointment for date night, but it's like, instead of date night, it's like you're dating yourself for 15 minutes every day, right?
Right. I mean, we do have a standard recommendation that you spend at least 2 hours in nature each week, at least 20 minutes each time. Okay. And this is based on evidence, but it doesn't have to be with yourself. It can be with friends or family, other loved ones. There is evidence showing that when we connect to other people outdoors, that makes the benefits even more powerful.
Are there any activities that sort of intensify or enhance the results as opposed to just sitting? Like, is there different modalities within the modality, if you will?
It depends on the person. And I think we haven't gotten quite down to that level of detail yet about knowing what kind of nature experience is good for what kind of person or condition. But really just getting outside for anyone is going to be good. And then we know that exercise has a lot of evidence-based benefits as well. So if you can move, that'll be beneficial. And then mindfulness too, being aware of your environment, tuning into yourself. That's also been shown in a lot of research to improve mental health in particular.
We have, I'm just thinking of people who live downtown in towers and things like that. Is the deck good enough, or do you really need to get out to a park somewhere nearby?
It can be hard for people who are in urban environments to connect to nature, unlike people who live in more rural environments and have nature closer by. But if you feel like you've had a meaningful nature experience, you can experience those benefits. So if you can, say, put some plants on your deck, or slow down, or try to notice the birds or the movement or the clouds going by, even if you're in a tall tower, you can, if you feel like you've had that meaningful experience, then you'll see some benefits.
Wow. Have you heard of Casseguy Park here?
I have not.
Okay,
Casseguy Garden.
Yeah, Casseguy Garden. So downtown, there's actually we have a twin city, Japanese city, and so we built a park that commemorates. So it's sort of Japanese style with koi ponds and things like that, and it's right behind City Hall in the bustle of things, but it's boarded up, and it's a little hidden place because every time I ever go there, there's hardly anybody there, like just a handful, 2 or 3 people.
It's a great place to take photos of people.
And it's quiet.
I have taken a lot there.
And I would think,
no, like a portrait. So because you have the beautiful different trees, like you have all the Japanese maples in different colors, and it creates a great bouquet in behind.
Right. And so I'm just thinking that for a downtown resident would be a great spot.
I think that's why they did it, right? I can't remember the name of the sister city though. It escapes my mind, but is it Kasai? Is it
Casseguy?
Oh, yeah. Right.
There you go. I think it is,
Now I know.
Jason mentioned that you spoke at Fully Charged.
I did.
Yeah.
I
was there. We didn't see each other.
Okay, no, I was on stage talking about the
I was
health
not on stage.
Of gas stoves. It was
really?
such a cool event.
Yeah, it was. It was the first one. They billed it as the largest EV event in the world. It was interesting. It was very, very interesting. I didn't get to see all the speakers. I was only there for one day. But
my 8-year-old loved the massive electric trucks.
Oh yeah. The logging truck downstairs.
He was blown away.
We've done a show with Chase a few times. He's out of Merritt, right? Chase Barber.
Yeah.
With the hybrids. He's got diesel electric Edison motors. Yeah.
Right.
Pretty cool.
That was in my capacity as president of the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, not prescribing nature. Although you could use your EV to get out into nature.
Yeah. It was a good show, though. It was interesting, right? And I think the cool thing they had going on there was that you could actually test drive any number of EVs, I think for about 15 minutes, and you could test drive as many as you wanted, as long as you could make the lineups, I guess. But
in your capacity, you're there talking about the risks or dangers or the of natural gas stoves and cooking. And so maybe while you're here, maybe share with us what the message of that was.
Sure. A lot of people don't think about the fact that when you're burning natural gas in your gas stove, you're combusting a fossil fuel inside your home. And so if you think about burning fossil fuels in your car and the exhaust tailpipe coming into your kitchen, that's almost sort of like what you're doing when you burn natural gas in your stove. So there's a pollutant called nitrous oxide that gets released into your home when you burn things, essentially. And if you don't have proper ventilation, or even if you do, it's really hard to get those levels down to a safe level. So there was a study showing that about 1 in 8 cases of childhood asthma in the US can be attributed to gas stove use. And it's kind of similar to living with a smoker in terms of the respiratory risk.
One of my things I've always wanted in the kitchen is like a gas stove. I've never had one in the home. I think we've had one in 2 homes that we never actually moved into, but we now with the induction, we've really that they're faster than gas anyway, right? So the induction stoves are quite fast. I am curious though, you were saying there's some, it releases some contaminants into the air. Is it the same as gasoline though? Or is it, because they always bill natural gas as cleaner?
It's not quite. So
Right.
it is a bit more refined, but you
Right.
still are burning a fossil fuel and releasing pollutants. And even when you're not burning gas on your stove, it's leaking. So it's leaking pollutants like formaldehyde, like carbon monoxide into the air, even when you're not burning it. So
Right.
Some friends of mine have heard about the health harms of gas stoves and have bought an induction plate, not a full setup like
Right.
you have, but a plate, and tried to cook on that. That's better than burning gas, but some of those pollutants are still leaking, even if you have just gas
Even on
infrastructure. Not
Oh,
induction.
okay.
Induction is great. Induction
Yeah, I was just
does
like,
not.
what? What?
No, induction's fantastic. It's such a good option.
Yeah, I know, and it's so fast now. It's just in, and I cooked in a restaurant on gas stoves. That's why I always wanted one in my home, but I find the induction now is just super fast to boil water or whatever you want to do, right? So
Yeah, and more energy.
and cleaner though too, just cleaner to clean up, right? Because usually I've cooked on lots of gas stoves, and it's usually you make quite a mess.
And safe
Right.
too. It doesn't heat up as much as gas. Like if you have little kids at home, it's not as much of a hazard.
Right, yeah, because you can put your hand on it as long as the pot's been off there for a while, right?
Mhm.
So.
I know we're running out of time with Melissa. I know you have to get back to a dinner before your speaking event, so we'll wrap quickly. I have one quick question just to circle back on spending more green time in your daily lives. What kind of tips or advice do you have for people that are trying to create that habit? Because obviously making a new habit is going to be difficult, and that's a significant one. Do you have anything in mind when you're helping patients?
There are a few evidence-based tips. One of them is to write it down. Just like you said, scheduling a date with someone else, schedule a date with yourself or others for nature, because if you don't actually schedule time for it, the chances that you'll do it are lower. And then telling other people, scheduling that nature time with family and friends, because they'll keep you accountable and keep you going. And then also just trying to make it like a given, having it as a must-have, as a non-negotiable in your life, just as important as brushing your teeth at night. And then weaving it into your routine. Like if say you typically drive home, maybe try walking home or biking home through a treed area, or instead of sitting inside a coffee shop with a friend, grabbing it to go and walking in a park. There are lots of different ways we can incorporate nature time into our lives and without difficulty.
I was wondering if I could get a prescription written so I give it to my wife, or I should golf at least once a day.
I mean, we'll
That's nature.
negotiate that. We'll talk about that after.
If people wanted to come and see you tonight, is there still tickets or is there still availability to come out there? Or
I think that it's fully sold out.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Actually.
awesome. That's
But
great news.
I mean, you can still try to show up at the door at 7 o'clock at the community theater.
Yeah.
they're
And
probably
so you can
streaming
see-
it or something or recording it as well.
I'm not sure about that, but yeah, you can always stop by.
Either way, hopefully today, if you are found nature prescriptions now and PARX, you can look
Can
into
you
it
ask your
further.
doctor, any doctor too?
Yeah, so if say your doctor isn't signed up for our program, you can just bring it up casually and say, "Hey, I've heard about this National Nature Prescription Program." Our website is www.parkprescriptions.ca.
That's PRX.
Correct. Just Google it. We're the top hit.
Okay.
And then you can ask them if they want to register and start prescribing nature.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's super. Thank you very much for coming in and taking time out of your schedule.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
My pleasure. Thanks.
And join us tomorrow as we chat with realtor Colin Krieg. He's going to be sharing with us some trends in the Okanagan real estate market and much more. Until then, subscribe and like if you want to stay in the know, and keep striving for a better you. Have a great night from Kelowna Now.